Hello, and welcome to me talking about whatever I want because I can, and no one can really stop me. Honestly, today's different because it's not 2 in the morning that I'm recording this, so I can be a little bit louder and not so quiet if they're waking everyone up. So, today I wanted to ramble on about Merlin, BBC Merlin, because now I'm remembering there's like a whole movie. That's not what I'm talking about. I don't even really remember it. I watched it. I don't remember it that much now. And I'm like, it did. That doesn't matter. That's the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about BBC Merlin, which if you haven't watched, oh my god, I would highly recommend. Absolutely watch it. I loved it. To be honest, I don't really know when I got into like. I just remember finding a compilation of it, just like stumbling across a compilation. I don't know which of the two it was at first that I watched. It was either the one where it's a compilation of Merlin and Arthur kind of like going back and forth and just insulting each other and kind of fighting. Or so it was that one or the other one where it was just out of context. It's just clips out of context with Merlin. It was one of those two. By the way, I remember watching it and I was like, okay, I have to watch the show now. Like I'm intrigued. Like I have to know more. So I remember binge watching the hell out of that show. And I mean, it didn't disappoint. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. It just, boy, the ending though, which it did surprise me because of how long ago the show ended, that the fandom was still like alive and kicking basically. But also, I feel like just surviving off of like spite and fanfiction because the ending, right? Which it was an ending, all right? That's, I don't want to spoil it, but like it was an ending. But I I was surprised how, but it is which I mean after the whole show, I mean even during watching it I did get into the fanfiction of the show. Obviously, there's just the natural progression of it. But especially after how the show ended, definitely just headfirst into all the fanfiction. I couldn't help myself. Um I feel like if the show ever got a reboot, which is a huge if, because I doubt it, if it ever got a reboot, I feel like it would. I don't know. I would want to see it animated. Like it doesn't have to be. Like it could be like live action. Like I'd watch it either way. But I feel like it could be animated just because I I'm already like from watching like the original Merlin. Like I'm already attached to like the actors who played the characters. So now I'm like, okay, when I imagine the characters, this is the look that I have in mind for them. So it's like I wouldn't be like opposed to like different actors because like obviously you would if they don't want to play the role again. So I wouldn't be opposed to it because it's not like mid-season they're switching up actors. So it's it's just a reboot. So it's not. But I'm like already attached to that. But you know, but I also feel like there's a lot more you could do with like you have like a lot more dynamic fights. Do a lot more with the magic. To show it off a bit more in live action. I mean, special effects and like CGI have gotten better, obviously, but still, I feel like a lot more you can do with it animated, especially for the world there too. Like explore that a little bit more. It's not confined to wherever the hell reality is. So I feel like either way, I'd watch it if, which probably never, but if we can hope if ever did, I'd watch either one. Um, there, it could pick. I mean, if because they could just pick up where they left off from um the ending. Oh my god, this is like a huge spoiler. From the ending where Arthur comes back, basically. Because I would watch the hell out of that. Just having Merlin guide Arthur through modern times, like getting him used to it, there'd be a lot of angst, I can imagine, because, Arthur's coming back, everything's different, everyone and kind of everything is gone. But I'd also love to see, like, him, like, trying new foods, him figuring out, like, what these things are. Like, it would be so funny to me. I don't know. I would watch that because it'd be funny. Just to see him kind of struggle to figure. I mean, obviously Merlin would be there by his side as always, but still, it'd be funny just to kind of see it. But with the ending of the show, and like again during, I kind of got into the fan fiction of it because of course I did. I don't even really. I don't remember when that started. I don't remember the first fiction I read of Merlin, but a B&B romance in modern times. I really like that. Like, even though it didn't really have anything to do with the original story, I guess you could, like, it didn't have anything to do with Albion and, like, Arthur coming back or anything. Like, it didn't have anything to do with that, right? It just took the characters, kept their personality, and kept, like, everything about them and kind of their dynamic, right? And put them in, like, in modern times. Because, like, it kept their dynamic because, like, Arthur is this rich boy from the city, and, like, his father owns a company and he works there with it. And you have Merlin, who's from, he works and lives at the bed and breakfast that Arthur ends up going to. Because basically, what happens is Arthur gets frustrated and he gets upset and he starts driving, and he just drives until he can't anymore because his car either runs out of gas or breaks down, and that's when he's pointing in the direction of, the breakfast, like the breakfast bed where Merlin is. It's Merlin and Gaius. Gaius owns it, they both, are there. And that's where they meet. And it keeps kind of like the dynamic because, Arthur's the prince, Arthur's the prince, and meanwhile Merlin and like everyone else are like servants, knights, and so they're not really on the same kind of like status, like not the same social circle, but they still work and they still care for each other, and they still, they're still friends. It's kind of the same dynamic. Arthur being a rich boy from a city, and he comes to this village kind of, I don't want to say out in the middle of nowhere, but like in this little village where everyone is, I should say. Everyone's there, right? Arthur's the only one who's not there. Like, Gawain, Lancelot, Percival, Gwen, like, all of them are there. They live there in that village. They grew up and with each other, and they know each other since forever. They went to school together. Arthur's the only one who, he's coming into, like, their little world. And it's like for him, it's like a little vacation to get away from his dad, and like, because he's frustrated, so he just had to get away. Morgana is there too. She's not in the village, but it does show that she is there. She was tired of being under Uther's thumb, and so she left like a while ago. And so her and Arthur like are still in contact, and she encourages him to get like to just leave Uther. Like he can't, like you gotta make your own decisions, and so we kind of get that back and forth between like Arthur kind of finding himself because he has to go back, because all he's ever known is kind of pleasing his father, living up to expectations, and so he's fighting with himself because like that's not really what he wants, to go back to the city and go back to all of that where it was kind of lonely in his penthouse and with all those kind of ritzy parties, because he likes living in the village with Merlin and hanging out with all their friends and just kind of being there in the moment and being kind of stupid and getting up to really dumb things, shenanigans. And I really loved that. It's a very sweet fanfiction I really loved, to be honest. Even though I didn't really, have anything to do with the original, it still kind of kept their dynamic where Arthur was kind of, because it did show Arthur kind of being like, not naive, he just didn't, because he's real rich and he didn't know, like, he's never questioned, because at one point Merlin was asking, I don't remember, it was about soap or something. He's like, "Do you know how much that costs?" He's like, "Oh, it doesn't." It's like, that's expensive. It's like, because it's, so he doesn't. I don't want to. He doesn't have like, he has concepts of money. It's just like he's just, a little bit removed from it. So so to him it doesn't cost that much, but it's like that's a lot. Like, Strange Lights. That one was cute. It's not like a one shot or anything. It is just it's not a one shot, but it is like it's a series of moments throughout Arthur's life that we get a glimpse in. And so it's about the light, kind of like in the episode where the chalice, where Merlin drinks the poison and he summons the light to guide Arthur through the cave and all. So it's about that, except this is like way before they even met, so when they're kids. And the first time Arthur ever sees the light is when he's lost the forest and he's crying because, he's lost and he doesn't know how to get out. And that's when he first sees the light, it appears to him, and it guides him out of the forest. And since then, he's like, tried to purposely get lost in the forest to get the light to come back to him. And then he's done other stupid things to get it to come to him. And it's it's very sweet because it shows Arthur sense like kind of questioning, because it's magic and Gaia tells us such as like, and the person summoning the ball of light for you clearly wanted to help you. So it gets him to question, is magic like really evil and all this? So it's from, and he clearly wants to find the person who's able to summon the light so he can protect them, because he's like they did for me. And that's a very sweet moment. So it's moments where the lights appear for Arthur, where it comforts him or protects him, like from an assassin, where it obviously illuminates for Arthur to see the assassin, and he ends up getting nicked. He's fine, but he ends up getting nicked, and like the light ends up healing him, because of course it does. He doesn't put together that as Merlin, because obviously he's not in his life until Merlin does come into his life, like in canon, and the whole chalice episode happens. That's when he puts together the light and Merlin are connected, because the light comes back to him, obviously to guide him out of the cave. And that's when like he even kind of hears Merlin's voice, and that's when like he looks at the light, and it's like at this point, since he's met Merlin and like he's had such a big impact on his life, he looks at it and he's reminded of Merlin's eyes, and that's when he puts it together like, oh my god, Merlin's the person who's been summoning the light and doing all this. It's very sweet. It's cute to me. It's another, The Trouble with Daisies. That one, I didn't even know what to say when reading that one, to be honest with you. I was just intrigued by the title. I'm like, okay, I have to. And like the description, I'm like, okay, I have to. So it's another kind of series of moments, but not like throughout his life or anything. It's just a series of moments of Arthur trying to win over Daisy. So so Merlin ends up saving a small dog. And, the dog, really takes liking to him, obviously, and ends up following around a lot. And it was like on sight that the dog did not like Arthur as soon as they walk into the room. And Daisy sees Arthur, he immediately starts growling and kind of barking, does not like Arthur. And Arthur's like almost offended that Daisy doesn't like him. It's like, I'm just a little rat. Like, so he's like offended that, obviously Merlin's like, well, if you want Daisy to leave, like, I'll leave. And like, obviously he doesn't want that. And he's like, fine, whatever. Daisy's gonna stay. And it's so funny to me because Arthur is so like, because Merlin even teases Arthur about it, like, oh, he just doesn't like you. It's like, because it goes with first impressions, because obviously the way Arthur and Merlin met weren't great. And Arthur's like offended, and that's where it starts off with the whole, he's like, you know what, fine. I'm gonna get Daisy to like me. And so he starts, so that's what the series of moments is Arthur trying and failing to, to get Daisy to really like him. And it I mean, it doesn't work, obviously. It doesn't matter until, an incident happens and Merlin is injured and Daisy runs to get Arthur. And obviously, after that whole incident, Daisy goes back to barking at him. He's like, I thought we passed this. And that's when he finally puts it together. Tony's, I didn't even put this together because it was such like a quick kind of moment. Like, it was mentioned, like, as Merlin teasing Arthur about it. But earlier, Merlin is teasing Arthur about the soap that he uses because he's the only one who buys from that trader. It's like, you're the only one in the kingdom that does it. It's like, and, so it's like a quick tease, and it's like, okay, that's normal banter for them. Except, not really. They put together that Daisy is ever so kind of like, Daisy reacts really aggressive whenever Arthur just gets out of the bath, and even bit him once because he literally just took a bath and like they were in the room, and it was like, but any other time after that, the scent had kind of suddenly faded. So Arthur was like, he's like, he goes to take a bath without the soap, and he comes back and he's like, there's no way, like, if this works, and of course it does. It's fine. He's like, that's what you were working out about, my soap. So it's so he's like, oh, so you could perfectly fine with my socks, but the soap is where you draw the line. It's like, it's so dumb. It's so, I didn't even put it together. We're just so dumb and so funny to me because it was like it's a nice read. Like, I didn't even, I didn't know what to expect how reading it, even when reading the description, because I'm like, okay, there's what even, you know. Um, Little One. Little One is kind of, it's another, I guess it is kind of like another series of moments kind of with it. But it's basically Arthur kind of, two kids suddenly kind of appear in Arthur's room, and he's like, who the hell are these kids? Where do they come from? What is going on, right? And so Merlin and Arthur kind of work together to kind of hide, like, not hide the kids, but they're like, because, hire and hide kids, but they're like, until we figure out, like, where they came from and, like, who they are, should probably kind of, like, it's like, give a cover story for them. The cover story is them. Like, yep, they're Merlin's kids. It's like, yeah, totally. It's like, why was that the cover story? But, okay. And the kids also kind of look like Arthur and Merlin. So, if you don't see where this is going, they kind of look like Arthur and Merlin. And it is interesting because it's another one where it does get Arthur, because this is where Uther is still like in charge and, Matt's still banned and whatever. It does get Arthur to think about, like, magic and evil and blah, blah, because one of the kids has magic. And obviously it's like, well, he's just a kid and he's just seen playing around with it. So it's like, and, making shapes. How is that supposed to be, evil? So it does get him thinking. And it does get revealed, like, Merlin is revealed to have, so they end up co-parenting the kids basically, which cute. But it is revealed to him that Merlin has magic. The reveal happens because, while one of the kids, they were messing around with their magic, trying to kind of show them, like, oh, what he could do, he accidentally loses control. Like, he gets scared and loses control, and the fire kind of starts spreading everywhere, and, like, he's panicking, so he can't really calm down and gain control of it. So Merlin has to step in and extinguishes the fire. And that's when, Arthur sees, like, oh, and he's, like, taking this all in. And the kids are like, wasn't that cool? Because, like, they're like, from the kid, like, oh, wasn't that cool? Like, we look at Arthur, and Arthur's still reeling from this, but, he takes it all in, and he's like, yes, it was cool. It's a very sweet moment, and you'd have to read it, but it's a very sweet moment where Arthur does, it shows, like, he's accepting Merlin, because, like, it's very sweet. I love it. It's adorable, but and they end up going, they end up going to because of that, they end up going to the dragon to ask, like, okay, where do these kids come from? Because they're just kind of like appeared out of nowhere. And obviously, he answers, but in his own riddled way, he answers that they are technically your kids. Like, because, they are yours. They're just magically made. You'd have to read each other thing. It's very cute. So they end up, truly becoming parents to the kids, and it's pretty sweet. And they even have, moments, as kids usually do when they question everything. Even yeah, he asked Arthur, it's like, why does it, because he's asking, it's like, well, why doesn't Merlin have a crown? And Arthur's like, what do you even say to that? Like, oh, because he's not royalty. Like, it's like, he doesn't want one, which is not a lie, but, it's not, it's very cute, though, how they co-parent, do everything. And, like, the cycle of the year, we begin again. Oh my god, when I tell you the dramatic of it, the dramatics of it. I don't even remember how I found that. I found that because of it was on Tumblr. Someone did a fan art of it, and it was like, this is really good fan art, and it's like really well drawn and like shaded and everything. And they said it was like a drawing from like a scene from a fanfic, and it was that one, and it was like, I just had to read it. It was, oh my god. So it picks up where, not really just where we left off, like, Arthur comes back, and Merlin is, he's old, kind of like how, when we last saw him, like, in the last episode. He's old, right? So he's established his life for himself, like, as, old Merlin, basically. He's allowed himself to age this much. And Arthur comes back suddenly, and so, like, he reverts back to his younger self, but obviously because, his older self had a life already, and the people around him kind of question, like, oh, where'd he go? Like, everything. It's like, he's like, oh, I'm his, I think he says, like, I'm his nephew, and, like, he just kind of left to, and they're upset because I was like, it's like, oh, he just left suddenly without saying goodbye. He's like, oh yeah, it's like, I'm really sorry. Like, so it's very sweet. It's also this film is very angsty because it's like, and obviously would be, it's Arthur coming back and everything is gone, so it's everyone he's ever known. That's gotta hit hard. And it does show, like, so it's Merlin kind of guiding him to getting used to this and getting used to everything around him. And I never thought about it, but I never thought about it, but until this fanfic kind of like, but like, Arthur, no one can understand Arthur, and he can't understand anyone. Merlin's the only one who can. I never thought about it. I'm like, oh yeah, they wouldn't speak the same language. So it is a little bit of a language barrier. So, but throughout everything, since Arthur's been gone, Merlin's been writing in books, basically, for everything throughout history, everything that's happened, and to the kingdom, especially since Arthur's been gone. And so that's like a little quick history for Arthur to read through. And obviously, for him to read through, like, what happened to his kingdom since he's dead, a lot of things happened. And he got upset, and he got upset when reading one particular scene, and he stormed out. And he was near, and Merlin was kind of looking for him, and he finally kind of noticed him. It was like he was near the lake. And this scene was so sad. It's very sweet, but sad, because he freaks out. He immediately starts dragging Arthur away from the lake, and Arthur's like, what are you doing? Like, you have to get away from, it's like, and he's saying, you have to get away from the lake and whatever. And that's when, Arthur realizes, like, Merlin is terrified of Arthur being anywhere near that lake, because he's terrified that it will drag Arthur back, and Arthur will be gone again, and he'll leave him alone. And that's so heartbreaking. Like, in that moment, like, you would have to read it, but it's so sad. But it's so sweet. Arthur apologizes, like, I'm sorry, like, I didn't mean to worry you, like, but it's very, it's very sweet, though. But in that moment, aside from getting Arthur used to everything and giving him quick lessons of history to catch him up to everything, they're also kind of trying to figure out, like, what the threat is, because that was the prophecy. Arthur will return when, like, they need him most, and, well, he's back, so what would the threat be exactly? And it is so it's like, what would the threat be then? um it's so weirdly kind of, because everything is fine so far, and everything appears fine, nothing's really out of the ordinary, everything just continues on. And then it doesn't come until, like, Merlin's kind of showing him around, like, so he's driving around and they're leaving to, like, go into, like, I think it's like the city they're leaving, so they get farther away from the lake. As they get farther, well, they start to get sick almost, and they start to feel worse, and they start to feel just awful. That's when they realize something is preventing them from getting too far away from there. So they're not allowed to leave, like, that far, like, away from the lake and everything. And so, like, could this be part of the threat? And, like, could this be, like, because something is kind of keeping them there? And I just loved it. I loved every minute of reading it. It's very, it's sweet moments and everything. But it's very, like, I loved it. Oh my god. Kind of how I did too. Like, I binge read the hell out of it too. Like, I think I finished in, like, 3 days, which is, like, I try and pace myself during, but, like, it never works out. Like, it's just so. I also usually read near completed or completed fanfics just because I'm impatient. I don't. I don't know what to say. I'm impatient, so I can never just wait and be like, not gonna feel like I'm impatient. Like, I can't, like, ever just wait ever. But yeah, that's it. Honestly, if you've listened this far, why? But no. But thanks for listening this far into whatever the hell this ramble is, and hopefully the next time, whatever I feel like talking about and whatever that is, it won't be recorded like 2 a.m. But knowing my sleep schedule, probably will be. But let's hope not. But until next time, thank you for listening.